Hello everyone and welcome back, and in this video we are going to learn about the OSPF summarization. That's the topic that we are going to continue with. In OSPF, when we talk about the summarization, we have mainly two different types of summarization that we can really implement in OSPF, and those are like the internal summarization and second one is external summarization. So we can apply basically these two different types of summarization in OSPF. Let's talk about the internal summarization first. So first thing is first that in OSPF there is a rule that you cannot really summarize the intra-area prefixes. Okay. So if you are planning to summarize the intra-area prefixes, that's not going to be possible in OSPF at any point of time. And the mechanism of summarization in OSPF is quite different than EICRP or maybe RIP, because in EICRP and RIP, you could implement the summarization on any router anywhere whenever you need it, right? Since they were distance vector routing protocols. But in link state routing protocols, it's not going to work in that way. Like it's not like you go anywhere and then you put the summarization or you configure the summarization and you can summarize any type of prefix. Is not That's not possible. Thing is that if you want to perform summarization, you have only two things to do. Like when we talk about the internal summarization, you can summarize only inter-area prefixes, and it can be implemented only on ABR, which means that internal summarization can be implemented only on ABR, and you can summarize only inter-area prefixes. That's it. That's for internal summarization, right? So just a sec, please. Yes. So that's about the internal prefixes, and those are just inter-area prefixes. And there is one more different type of summarization that you could implement, and that was an external summarization, right? And the limitation for the external summarization is that it can be done only on ASPRs. Like wherever you are basically redistributing routes into OSPF, you can summarize all those redistributed prefixes. So that's what you could do as long as external summarization is there. Now, you could ask that why do we require the internal or external summarization? Why do we actually require the summarization at all, right? So there are many use cases for the summarization. One, you can use it for the best path selection, like you can manipulate that. And also, of course, you can use it to reduce the number of routes in the routing table. So you can use it in either way, right? And that depends upon the requirements, that which type of requirements you have, and accordingly you can utilize the summarization. Like in my topology, we are going to use the summarization first to reduce the number of routes. Like um, we can summarize the prefixes, right? So to do so, right, if we are really looking for internal summarization, then it can be implemented on ABR, right? So let's do one thing just to prove that. I'm gonna create a couple of loopback interfaces, right? And then we will see that how it can be implemented. So over router 14, I'm gonna go ahead and over router 14, I'm going to create a couple of loopback interfaces, right? And then I will get them advertised into OSPF so that we can see that we are able to perform summarization. In fact, okay, let me do that. Then I don't want to puzzle anyone over here, right? So let's create a couple of networks here. So let's say loopback 11, and for example, 11.1.1, and yep, dot 0. IPOSP network type is point to point, and then loopback 12. It's 2.1, back 13, 3.1, 14 is like 4.1, network type 15, 5.1, to IP OSPF interface brief. Okay, perfectly fine. So it's been done now, right? It has already got the advertised no OSPF because I probably used network 00 command, and now this route must be injected in area 0. So if you come on router 3, you must receive all those prefixes to IP route like that. So you're receiving all those 5 prefixes coming as it is. Now you want that, for example, I just want that whenever traffic is coming in area 3, it should come via router 4 only. It should come via router 4 only. So from router 4, let's keep all these prefixes get advertised as it is, and from router 2 we can advertise that prefix as a summary address, so that we will be using the summarization for the purpose of path manipulation. Like for now, probably your best path selection, like from R1, the best path to reach the loopback of router 14 could be via router 2, right? And for router 3, of course, it could be via router 4 only, or maybe let's assume it in the different way, or in reverse manner. Like router 2 should be the preferred router to get enter into area 3 only, right? For all of these routers. But probably if you are doing trace route now, let's say from router 11, if you do the trace now, trace for that prefix, right? Or maybe from router 6 or from anywhere, right? I should get the console, right? It's not working. Okay, it got closed actually. Let me close all these consoles. We'll open up. We'll take the console access of these routers again. Yeah, looks like that in between we lost the connectivity. Okay, I closed all of the consoles, and I'm coming back to maybe router 13 this time. From router 13, I'm going to trace that prefix. Trace 11.1.1, right? And numeric. So you are going via router 4, right? You can see that you're going via router 4. What I want is that for everyone, for this area 1, right? Especially, and for, of course, for this area 0, the preferred entry point should be via router 2 only, right? So from router 2, I can keep advertising all those 11 prefixes as it is, right? But over router 4, let me just configure the summarization. So over router 4, I can just go ahead over router 4, and over router 4, I could configure the summarization, the internal summarization. So you can see that I'm receiving those 11 prefixes here individually, like 11.1.0, 5.0. All of them are coming as a intra area, but then those are getting injected in area 0 as well as in area 2 as a type 3 LSA, right? So before injecting them into other areas in the form of type 3 LSA, we can configure the summarization. So you just go ahead and implement that. And for that, I'm just going to say area 3 range, and that's 11.1.0.0, 255, and then 248.0. There are more keywords as well. Like if you want to do that, like if you want to define some cost value, right? So for example, I just wanted to set the default cost as 10 for the summary address. Sorry. So you have configured the summary address now with cost 10. So router 3, if you go router 3 now, this router 3 must be receiving the summary address as well as those individual prefixes. So yes, I'm receiving that summary address, and that's coming from router 4 actually. And also I'm receiving these individual prefixes, right? So router 2 is still giving those individual prefixes to router 4, and router 4 is giving it to router 3, right? That way. But since the best path selection, first of all, it compares the longest prefix match. So if you do the trace for 11.1.1.1, right, you should go via router 2 only. No, basically from router 4, it is given to router 14 directly. It's not going to router 2, and there is a reason because again, router 4 is already having those individual prefixes in its routing table coming from router 14, and those are intra-area prefixes, and router 2 is giving them to router 4 as an inter-area. So obviously router 4 is preferring the intra-area prefixes, and therefore as soon as router 3 given that traffic to router 4 has given it to router 14. So to avoid that situation, I added the cost over Ethernet 0 by 1 actually, if you remember. I'm gonna remove that cost from here, and instead I'll be moving over Ethernet 0 by 0 IP OSPF cost. Let's say I just made it 50. So now for those individual prefixes, because I'm receiving the individual prefixes, like router 2 is advertising the individual prefixes, right, to router 1, as well as it is giving them to router 4. Router 4 is giving to router 5, sorry, router 3, and router 1 is also giving to router 3. So for router 3, the best path should be via router 1 to reach those individual prefixes this time, right? And the summary prefix must be coming from router 4 directly, like we have that way to reach that summary prefix, and also from this way. But currently it will not prefer that summary prefix because we already have the longest prefix match, right? Like based on longest prefix match, those specific prefixes will get preferred by router 3. So over router 3, now if you look at the routing table for those individual prefixes, the best path should be via router 1, you can see. Yes. So we have via router 1. And if you do the trace now, right? So if you are doing the trace, you will be going via router 2. You will be getting entered in area 3 via router 2 only. So you can do this trace from anywhere, right? So like we did it based on the summarization. So we basically summarized the prefixes. Now I do not, if we do not really, if we do not really want that area 3 should advertise all those prefixes out of any area at all, I don't want my OSPF to get them advertised out of area 3. Within area 3, those 11 prefixes should get advertised, like router 4 should have them in its routing table. Router 2 should also have them in their routing table, right? So router 4 is already having them in their in its routing table as individual prefix, right? So it should have them, and similarly router 2 should also have them individually in their routing table, but then further ABRs must not advertise those prefixes to the other areas, right? So for that, again, you can do that by the help of summarization. So not only you are summarizing, like not only you can perform path manipulation, or you can reduce the number of prefixes by doing summarization, but also you can perform filtering, and that's what I'm going to cover now. So over router 4, I just implemented that command, if you remember, right? So you could also say not advertise. So that keyword is also available. So what does that mean? That I'm going to summarize all those prefixes, but then I will not be advertising them into OSPF anymore, right? And same command I can execute, exactly same command I can execute over router 2. So if we are executing the same command over router 2, then you would see that these prefixes will never cross their area boundary, right? So router OSPF 1, hit enter, and then put the same command. So all those 5 prefixes are falling within this range. And now how to summarize that, I'm not covering here in this video, right? But we have summarized them, and we have kept not advertised keyword with this range command, right? So this range command is used for the summarization, but then not advertise command is used for not advertising that prefix into OSPF domain in any other area, right? So you can see that router 2 itself is having those specific areas locally. If you look at, yes, those prefixes are available here locally as a intra area, which is absolutely fine. And even router 4 will keep them as a intra area in its local routing table. but will not be giving them to any other area. So for example, if you come now to router 1 or router 3 or maybe router 7, router 8 or wherever, right? So let's say I went over router 3. Let me just move over router 3. So earlier we saw that we were receiving these 11 prefixes, but this time, no, we don't have anything like 11. So 1111 is there, but 11.1.1.0, 11.1.2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, those prefixes are not available, right? And not only prefixes, but also the summary address is not available, right? So that way you could even perform the filtering. So this type of requirement you may get into OSPF, that you advertise couple of prefixes in OSPF domain, but you just wanted them to be present in the same area, but you do not want them to get advertised into any other area. So that if you have that kind of situation or that kind of requirement, then you could achieve that by the help of summarization, by the help of configuring summarization on the APRs. So currently we had three ABRs in area 3, which are router 2 and router 4, and that's where we configured that summary command, and we used that no advertise keyword, right? So that's something that you could utilize. Um, so you should aware with that command, right? So over router 2, now I'm gonna remove that, right? To show run OSPF. Now you can remove this command. No summarization at all, right? So again, prefixes will get advertised as it is, right? Okay. Over router 4 as well. I'll be removing the configuration. So router OSPF 1. So again, the prefixes will get advertised individual in the form of type 3 LSA. So if you go back to router 3 now, earlier, like we stopped receiving routes, but again, we should start receiving them. So you came to know that how to configure the summarization, right? So even if you go back to router 2 and you execute the same command again, right? Router OSPF 1, just put that command, that area, remove no, because I'm not removing nothing like that. So as soon as you put that, it should also create a null entry, So you can see that null entry is also there. And this null entry is created in OSPF, EICRP, BGP everywhere when you do the configuration of summarization and when you configure the summarization. So for the summary address, it will always create the null entry to avoid any possible routing loops, because probably if I'm advertising the summary address to my neighbors and then if that is coming back to me, I could install that, but this time it will not install that because it's been installed using uh, it's already been installed in its local routing table. So you can see that show IP route 11.1.0.0, right? You can look at this route. The AD value is 110. This metric is 11, which is okay, but it's installed towards the null zero interface. So this entry is there just to avoid the routing. So we came to know that how to implement the summarization. Now look, I also want to discuss one more thing here, that there are certain rules that you should know about the summarization, especially the internal summarization, right? IP interface brief. Let me just put this in this way. Zero. 0. It would be easy for you if I keep them in the diagram, else you may get the confused over here. Okay, I'm gonna put it. So these prefixes are originally advertised by the area 3, right? And in area 3, we have two ABRs, router 2 and router 4. That's where we implemented the summarization. So let's move over router 2 for now, and let's get this removed, the summarization that we configured here. I'm so sorry. Router OSPF 1, and I'm just removing it. And then we will see that type 3 LSs will be given to router 3, and router 3 will get them advertised into the area 1 if I remove. Okay, currently it's configured as a totally NSSA, therefore it will not advertise the type 3 LSs. But then if I remove that totally NSSA thing from router 3, so over router 3, I would just say area 1 NSSA. No, summary, I'm gonna remove that. I'll just say area 1 NSSA. That's it. So now in the database of area 1, you can see the type 3 LSAs, right? And those are containing that 11.1.0/24 or 2.0. Okay, I mean, by mistake, I kept one in the last update as well. You can just understand that, right? So those prefixes are getting advertised from area 3 into 0, and then 0 is getting them advertised into area 1. So you can even see that. So IP OSPF 1 database. So these are the type 3 LSAs, and all of them are containing those individual prefixes here. You can see them now. Now, question is it possible to configure the summarization over router 3 and then get the summary prefix advertised into area 1? Is that possible? Let's try that. Router OSPF 1, area 0, range. And that's 11.1.0.0.248.0. Check the local routing table if you have any null entry. Do you have any null entry? No. And are you actually advertising only summary address in the area 1 database? Look at the database table again. No. So basically, the summarization didn't take place over router 3. We implemented it. We implemented this command, but it's not working. Even you can check the running config here. Still, those are internal prefix, but it's not working here, right? So that's the problem that you could actually see here. Let me just connect my power source to the, just a moment. I have to connect my adapter to my laptop now. So what I was explaining is like, I tried to configure summarization, right? In area 0, like using area 0. The command is there, right? But it's not working. So I was trying to explain the limitation for the summarization, right? So first thing is first, that internal summarization can be done only on ABR, but it's not like you can go to any ABR and then you can configure the summarization. Even router 3 is also working as an ABR, but it didn't work over router 3. You know why? Because router 3 is not an ABR for the originating area. And who is the originating area? That's area 3. So basically, my prefixes that I wanted to summarize are getting originated by area 3. And in area 3, I have only two ABRs. That's where you could configure the summarization. So that's the limitation. It's not like you can go to any ABR and then you can configure the summarization. No, that's not going to work in that way. Okay. So we could implement this summarization, this internal summarization, only on either router 2 or router 4, and that's where we implemented before, and it was working perfectly fine. But this time it's not working, right? Because it was not supposed to be work, right? So I hope that you have understood that what are the limitations for the internal summarizations. So for internal summarization, you can simply implement it only on ABR, but only on those ABRs which are ABRs for the originating area, right? So we knew that prefixes are being originated by the area 3 only, and in area 3 we have router 2, router 4, and those are the two routers, those are the two ABRs where we could really implement the summarization. So we saw that we configured the summarization over, like even I can go back again over router 2 and we can configure the summarization, right? Router OSPF1 and then summary address, right? The same command. Okay, let me just copy this command, and the same command I'll be putting over router 4. So if I go to router 4, this command. Now both of the routers, router 4 will create local null 0 entry. That's the one thing that you could utilize for the for the verification purposes. Similarly, router 2 must have also created null 0 entry for the summary prefix. Yes, it has. And then on any other router in other areas, whether you go to router 3 or anywhere, look at the database table. Let's say I'm checking it on router 3 this time. So you do not have all those prefixes coming individually. Now you have type 3 LSA only for that summary prefix. So that way you have also reduced the number of LSAs. So you have used summarization for the purpose of reducing number of LSAs, as well as we used it for the purpose of best path manipulation in OSPF. So that's all about the internal summarization. Now let's talk about, okay, is there any other option that we could utilize apart from what we covered so far with the range command? Let's put question mark. So you could use either cost, advertise, not advertise. So advertise is by default, so you don't have to put that command, because by default it advertises the summary address and suppresses all the individual prefixes. The default cost, you can modify that by using cost keyword that we have already used, and not advertised, we have also used that. So you know that how to utilize the internal summarization, right? And there is no way to summarize the intra-area prefixes, right? There is no way for that. You can only summarize the inter-area prefixes, and that can be done only on ABRs for the originating area. Okay, then let's talk about the external summarization. So for the external summarization, first thing is first that it can be implemented only on ASPR. So wherever you are doing the redistribution, like I'm doing redistribution over router 1, that's where I could configure the summarization. So I could go to router 1 this time, and we could see that we are redistributing a lot of prefixes there. Not a lot of, basically there are only 5 prefixes that we are getting them redistributed into the OSPF database. And we have type 5 LSS. So these are the LSS that have been originated by router 1 and of course the router 2, because we are doing the redistribution on both of them. So who is the SBR? That's router 1 and router 2 for these 150 prefixes. For these 150 prefixes, right? So that's that. Now you want to perform summarization. That's easy. You go to ASBR, right? And on the ASBR, you could simply say router OSPF1 and then summary address. And let's say 150.1.0.0.245.245.248.0. You can also use the same commands here, like not advertised. There is one more feature called NSSA only. I'll discuss this later on, not now, right? And also you could set the tag value. So if you do not want to advertise them, you can simply stop it, but by default, it will get them advertised, right? So 150.1.0.0, you can see them now. So there is a null entry now over router over the router 1, and also it is getting advertised only. Like it will also get advertised only the summary prefix. Similarly, you can do it over router 2. So let's move over router 2 and let's put the summary command 150.1.1.0.0.248.0. That way you could implement the summarization for the external prefixes. So we have done it for R1. We have also done it over router 2, and therefore we should receive only external, only summary prefix over router 14. So over router 14, you should see only the summary address for the external prefixes. Those external prefixes must not come as individual prefix, and you can see that we are receiving only summary prefix this time. So that way you could implement the summarization for the external prefixes over ASPR. So that's done over router 1 and router 2, and you could also use the not advertised keyword. It's all up to you if you do not really want to get them advertised into OSPF. And even if you do not want to advertise them, then why are you redistributing? Obviously, not advertise. I mean, this is not really something that. But yeah, so in case if you require so, then you can get that implemented, right? Okay. Apart from that, even you can configure the summarization on the translator. That is also possible. If someone is translating type 7 LSAs into type 5, at that time also you can perform the summarization. So for example, if router 13 is advertising some prefixes from here, let's create some of them. So over router 13, I'm going to create a loopback 11. The IP address is 13.1.1, and then loopback 12 is 2.1, loopback 13, 14, 15. Show IP interface brief, show IP ICRP interfaces, it got enabled on all. And then all those prefixes should get redistributed into OSPF by R11, and then it should generate type 7 LSAs here. So you can move over router 11 and you can check the database table that it should receive the type 7 LSAs, right? I mean, it should generate the type 7 LSAs for all of them. So either, I mean, you have two options. Either you can, if you want to perform summarization over router 11 itself, you can do that like this. Router OSPF1 summary address 11.1.0, sorry, 13.1.0.0, maybe 248.248.0, and then, yeah, that way. Now, if you look at the database table, you should see only one type 7 LSA. You see, the age has been exceeded 3600 seconds. So those LSAs will get removed sooner. Gone, right? So we have only one prefix. So that's one thing, right? Or that's one way that you could utilize. The other thing is like if you do not if you do not want to configure summarization on the originating ASBR, even you can configure the summarization on the translator. So you know that router 3 is working as a translator. So if you go to router 3 and if you look at the type 7 LSAs here, you should receive all of them. All of the type 7 LSAs are coming in, yes, and then it is translating them into type 5 LSAs as it is, right? If you want that it should summarize them, then you just go to OSPF, say summary address 13.1.0.0 255.245.248.0, and you are done. Then say show IP route for 13, you should have null entry. Yes, I have. And then we will see that it will get advertised only summary address, right? Look at the database table for the type 5 LSAs. So in type 5 LSAs, you do not see, like these are the type 5 LSAs, you do not see those individual prefixes. You have only summary prefix. So if you go to any other router, like maybe router 1, 2, 4, router 14. So if you go to router 14, you should see only individual prefix coming in from the range of 13. You see that 13.1.0/21. So that's coming in that way. So even you could configure the summarization on the translator when it comes to the external prefixes. Okay. So I hope that you have understood. You have understood the summarization. Now, with summary keyword, if you remember, right? Like even I could reconfigure the summarization over router 11, which was the ASPR for the type 7 LSAs. So if I go back to router 11, you remember that we configured the summary address, right? But when you configure this external summary address, you know what happens is that you have one keyword here, say NSSA only, right? So point is that even you can configure the summarization only for the NSSA, right? Like currently R11 is having only one area, right? Just imagine in that way. Currently, router 11 is having only one area, and that is not so stubby area. But what if it was participating into multiple areas? Let's say router 11 had area 1 as well as area 2. Area 1 is not so stubby area, but then area 2 is normal area. When you do redistribution from EIGRP into OSPF, now it will create type 5 LSAs for normal area, and also it will be creating type 7 LSAs for not so stubby area, right? So if you just wanted to perform summarization only for not so stubby area, then use this keyword. So this summary address will be advertised in not so stubby area, but in normal areas, all the prefixes will still keep advertising in the form of type 5 LSA individually. No summarization will be done for the normal area, right? So that's why they have given this not so stubby area only keyword over here, right? So that's all about the summarization. One more thing that I would like to discuss at the same point. Over router 3, when we configured this area as not so stubby area, right? You also had this option, no redistribution. No redistribution. Like I want to configure it as not so stubby area, like over router 11, right? Over router 11, I configured this not so stubby, this area 1 as a not so stubby area. You know it very well, right? You know it. What happened? Okay. You know that we have configured this area 1 as a NSSA. Now, by default in NSSA, redistribution is allowed, and that's why it is doing the redistribution, right? It's creating type 7 LSAs, right? But sometimes you may want to configure area 1 as an SSA, but you don't want to perform redistribution. So then add this keyword. As soon as you add this keyword, the redistribution will not be allowed. Do show IP OSPF database. Look at the database table. See, all of the type 7 LSAs will be gone and gone. All of them are gone. There are no type 7 LSAs anymore because you simply said, hey, my area 1 is an SSA, but I don't want to perform any type of redistribution. So you can stop the redistribution, right? So I'm going to remove this command. I'm going to say just an SSA so that it can perform redistribution. So that's the default behavior, that it allows the redistribution, but even you can stop redistribution in not so stubby area. Like if your router is participating into multiple areas and you are doing redistribution, but you do not want your redistribution to be done for the not so stubby area, just say no redistribution. Then your redistribution will not be done for not so stubby area. So that, I mean, this command will help you where your router is participating into multiple areas and one of them is NSSA and you are doing redistribution, but you do not want your redistribution to take place for the not so stubby area. Use this keyword then. This one, right? Inside, sorry, that was the keyword. Now redistribution. Use that keyword with area 1 and SSA command. So like I have covered now all these things. Basically, the intent of this video was to cover the summarization only, but we have covered this one additional topic as well. So that's all I wanted to cover in this video. So thanks for watching.